Hello, Trojan fans. Welcome to another edition of the Peristyle Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Abraham, publisher of USCFootball.com, joined alongside my buddy and pal, Triple Double. Yes, Connor Morrissette is in studio with me. We got a big show for you today, talking about the future of the USC Notre Dame rivalry, a lot of other stuff going on around the USC program. But welcome in, Connor. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well. How are you?
Can't complain. We just did an interview with Desmond Stevens through House of Victory that will go up a little bit later once that gets pushed through and approved. But we are live on YouTube. Should be live on Facebook. So if you're watching us live, thank you so much. You can join in the chat, put any questions you have in there. If not, if you're listening across our podcasting universe with Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can do that wherever you get your podcasts. And with those products, if you do have our feed on there, you want to leave us a 5-star rating and review, we appreciate it very much. And we'll like to read your 5-star reviews on the air. You can email us, podcast@uscfootball.com, if you have any questions. You can also call or text us, leave us a voicemail, shoot us a text, 424-254-9141 is where you can get a hold of us. A lot of different ways, but it's good. It's good to hear from all you. We haven't got a lot of emails for our show, Connor. We're getting a lot of composite 2-star recruits, a lot of recruiting talk right now, but there's stuff in the team world too. We'll talk some recruiting, but a lot of team stuff going on right now.
Yeah, a lot of.
Maybe not a lot, but there's stuff.
Off season is in full swing, and it really kicks up in June. But recruiting, it's never a dead time in college football. So while it might be the off season, there is still some stuff going on, and we'll update everyone on everything.
We will do that. I've got a few things to take care of first, including our sponsor, Trader Joe's. Just made dinner this week. I went back to my rosemary steak tips. They're marinated. You get the package, and they're really good. I mean, you can just put them right on your stovetop with like a nonstick pan, and it's like 5 minutes or so. They're great. I bought some corn on the cob from Trader Joe's, which I haven't done that before, so that was good. I just boiled some water and cooked those. Made a salad. Sometimes you buy the salad bags. I just bought like romaine and some of the vine tomatoes and celery and cucumbers and whatever. Put a salad together. But yeah, I love those steak tips. And then I like to get the red potatoes, and I made like a skin-on red potato mashed potatoes, and I really like those. So it was good. A good little Trader Joe's. I'm like looking at my plate. I'm like, all right, I got everything here from Trader Joe's, so that was good.
I got to start going to your house for lunch and dinner. Sounds like.
I had my friend Bruce Feldman over. I went fishing and caught a bunch of like local rockfish and stuff, and we had like a fish taco night, and that was a lot of fun. So his kids came over, and we had a good time with that. That was cool. Also, want to thank everyone for the support. The Tour de Pier was on Sunday, so I was down there. There's me riding the bike. I was one of the satellite instructors, and we had overall the tour raised $1.5 million, which was the goal. I was number 9, I think, in fundraising, so a little over like $8,300, something like that. So thanks to everyone that supported my ride. That was our team. Chrissy there in the middle, she's running the show. I don't know if you guys know some of the. I think they're like the CW shows or whatever, but we had a couple like child actors like on our team that I didn't really know who they were. So if you're watching and you recognize the photo, like, oh my God, that's the girl from blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't know who they are, but they were like on our team. But it was a lot of fun, and USC was down there. Got to see and talk with Eric Musselman, the head coach for the USC basketball team. It's funny, Heath Gregory, who's one of the founders of the Tour de Pier. He's a USC guy, so we talk USC stuff all the time. But he had grabbed Musselman and a box full of like little basketballs, so he could walk around the crowd. He grabbed me, so me and Eric Musselman are throwing like toy basketballs to the crowd. It was kind of funny. I don't know why I was doing that, but that was kind of fun. And then got to see Chad Bowden was up on stage, and he was riding, so I talked to him a little bit afterwards. And that was cool to see him out there. I know Jen Cohen did it last year, and Willie McGinnis was up there on stage. He was riding as well. So a lot of USC guys down at the Tour de Pier. But it was fun, and if you supported me, thanks for doing that. You did, Connor, so thank you.
Yes, my pleasure. A lot of USC people down there in the South Bay. That makes a lot of sense. So that was cool to see. I didn't go down there, but it was cool to see from afar all the pictures. And Willie McGinnis still looks like he could sack a quarterback.
He does.
Yeah. Patriot legend. Love that guy. And USC legend, obviously, too. But
Yeah, he was up there, but it was cool. And there's another. I mean, we're going from like charity event to charity event, but there's another one coming up on June 12th, and this is Olive Crest, which is a charity I worked with for several years out in the desert doing a golf tournament with Darnell Bing. Well, Matt Leinert's involved in this one. Brandon Hancock, Jim Abbott. Put a flyer up on the screen if you're watching. There's a QR. What is it? What? Yeah, QR code. Yeah, I'm like, what am I thinking? QR code there. You could scan. I know it's small, but you can email me or whatever if you want some more information on this. But it'll be Topgolf on June 12th, and Matt Leonard will be there. A bunch of USC legends will be around, and go check it out. But Olive Crest is a great charity that works with the foster care system, and a lot of kids go through foster care, and then they just get aged out, and they don't have any place to go. They don't even have a forwarding address because they were staying with random families and all that. So great charity, and that should be a lot of fun that night. We're going to try to get, with House of Victory, some players to come and all that. So if you want some information, if you didn't see that up on the screen, just email me or whatever, and Ryan@uscfootball.com. I'll send you all the info if you want to jump in there and be a part of it. But it's another charity event, so.
You do a lot of charity events, Ryan.
You got to get
very
back.
Impressive, yes.
Nah, you do what I can. You try to.
Oh, Meals on Wheels too. It's very honorable.
Thanks. Well, appreciate that. All right. Well, we got to get into the show. People are like, "Hey, are you going to talk about some football stuff?" Yes. So in the news cycle right now, we've heard Lincoln Riley kind of talk about it before, but the future of the USC Notre Dame game potentially in jeopardy. It's going to be USC is going to be at Notre Dame this October 2025. It's looked like it's on the schedule for 2026, but we've heard different things. I think Pat Forty reported that it's not. They don't have it scheduled for after 2025. Try to confirm that. I don't know if you've heard anything new on that.
I just sent a text. I'm trying to hear back on that. I was under the impression that it was through 2026, so maybe there's a clause or something that would allow it to end early if it's not extended. I don't have all the information, which I'm upset about here because we're doing the show, so I'm still working to get that. But yeah, I was always under the impression that they would play at South Bend this year and then in 2026 at the Coliseum, and then they would have to renew. And it's on a lot of the future schedules, but that Sports Illustrated article certainly cast doubt on that, saying that the 2025 game, this upcoming season, was the last one. So still working to get some information on that. But I was always under the impression that there was one more game after this season.
Yeah, and we'll see. I think from what I was told, and I'll put some stuff in the War Room and stuff too, but I'll probably tell you guys a lot of what I know now, just talking to different sources about this. I don't think people at USC want the game to go away. The sport is definitely changing. And so there's aspects of it where the rules are changing. And, if it's going to, with all the trips that USC has to take back east for the Big Ten schedule, things would make it a lot easier if Notre Dame would join the Big Ten. But obviously it doesn't look like that's happening or anything. So I think they're going to have to dot their I's and cross their T's on this. And I think a lot of it is just sort of waiting to see what unfolds, what's the new playoff going to look like, all that kind of stuff. But I didn't talk to anyone at USC that thought like, yeah, the game's going away. I think USC did offer an extension. My belief was that it was a 1 year for 2026 where there would come, and that didn't go, I think Notre Dame might have wanted longer. At least the perception out there is like, this is all on the USC side. But I've talked to USC people who are like, hey, we did offer an extension, but it wasn't like a long-term extension. It was more of a 1 year thing. So I think you're sort of waiting to see sort of how things play out. If I had to bet if the game's going away, I'm not going to bet that it is. I just think that there's a chance that it does, but I think a lot of people involved want to keep this going. It just has to make sense if it's going to be, 5 trips that are crossing 3 time zones every year on the football schedule. That might be a little more difficult, but that's sort of what I was been hearing. I don't know what your thoughts on it, Connor.
That's how it's been explained to me too, where USC right now is the team that's holding it up, but that's not to say they want it to go away, despite Lincoln Riley's comments at Big Ten Media Day last year, where he kind of insinuated that it might be it would be in the program's best interest to get rid of the game. I don't think as of right now that's a guarantee, and I think that Pat Ford article on Sports Illustrated kind of heightened the tension a little bit and got people all up in arms, painting USC as the team that is going to put an end to this rivalry. The way it's been explained to me is that isn't what USC wants to happen right now, but USC understandably has all the leverage, so them playing this wait-and-see game right now, that makes perfect sense to me, where Notre Dame, understandably, they need all the games they can get, especially later in the season. They would want to sign this long-term deal and not make any changes to the rivalry, but college football has changed so much over the years. USC and the Big Ten, everyone knows all the changes that have happened. I'm not saying anything new. So it's understandable why USC would take that wait-and-see approach, and I think it's a smart move. Why sign up for a 15-year or however, it was 12 years Notre Dame and Clemson? Why sign on to a long-term deal when you don't know what the future of the sport's going to look like? If I was in Notre Dame shoes, I would take the one-year extension and go through this wait-and-see approach and try to play ball with USC, because while Notre Dame doesn't need USC, the game definitely benefits Notre Dame a hell of a lot more than it benefits USC. If that game goes away, Notre Dame will obviously be able to fill their schedule, but they won't have as many marquee games as they would with USC on the schedule. So I just think the wait-and-see approach makes a lot of sense. It doesn't sound like USC wants to see the game go away, but if Notre Dame's going to play this hardball and not come to the table, not negotiate when USC has all the leverage, it's understandable why the game might go away. And so that's sort of my understanding of it right now. And if there are any questions in the chat, I know it's a little confusing. We can try to answer those best we can.
Yeah, we'll do our best on this. I know Justin in the chat, who said he's a Notre Dame fan in LA, he said officially ends 2025. Then USC gave a 1-year extension, is what I heard. Yeah, I think
so. That was a new report this week, which again, it could be true, but like there is a game on the schedule for 2026. So again, there could be a clause that would make it so that game doesn't exist. But I have people from Notre Dame texting me and saying, hey, we were under the impression it went through 2026 as well. So I'm not saying Pat Ford just made that up. There's probably something going on that I'm working to get more information on. But a lot of people on both sides of this thought it was going through 2026. So I'm not totally sure what that is all about. Once I get more information on that, I'll share it.
Yeah. Kevin says, look up the schedule for USC 2026. It's a brutal schedule without Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's true. It's the Big Ten slate in 2026 is really hard.
And then Grateful Trojan says, I want ND to join a conference before SC schedules them again. Obviously, if Notre Dame was in the Big Ten, then that could be one of, they would just play them every year. Like that would make things a little bit easier. So yeah, Kevin says USC plays Oregon and Ohio State at home. So, and then Anthony says Notre Dame would just add one of the Pac-2 teams to soften its non-con. I think Notre Dame needs, the playoffs set up well for Notre Dame as, one of the architects of everything. But I think there will be pushback, especially with the way that, it's going to come out. If Notre Dame was playing a very soft schedule and got in at 11-1, and there's some 10-2 SEC team that's not getting in, there's going to be major pushback. And I think Notre Dame, you realize that, like if there's going to be big, time football being played in the SEC and the Big Ten, and people are getting beat up but still doing well, but like a game behind Notre Dame, who didn't have a very tough schedule, that's not going to last all that long. So people aren't going to just put up with it because it's the Notre Dame brand. I think so. You need it. If you're Notre Dame, you need games like this. The long-term deal with Clemson, I think, is certainly going to help. But that's an ACC team, and we don't know. You want. I think you would rather have some Big Ten SEC games that you could play. They already have an ACC schedule, and it's great that you're going to play Clemson, which you'd be playing anyway a lot of the times. But if you have the regular series against USC, I think would mean a lot. I get it, the fatigue USC didn't do well on traveling through time zones last season. And, I'm not saying that's going to happen every year, but it takes something out of you. So we'll see. But I think the majority of USC fans want the game to go on. I know there's some fans that don't. But
look at our message board. There's a lot of fans who, we don't need them. I hate that attitude. Yeah. I want the game to continue. I know you don't want to placate them, and I understand, but let's try to come to some sort of a compromise here before we just say they need to join a conference. they're not going to join a conference. That's
Yeah.
something that they'll never do. So I think we got to drop that.
I don't know about never, but it doesn't seem like very likely. If there's going to be
If
some kind of
NBC's
super
paying
league,
them a boatload of money to have their own channel every year, that nothing would make them join a conference unless major changes are coming, which is possible to the whole format of everything. Like it's money, and they get a ton of money from NBC, so I don't see anything changing with that.
right? It would have to be the playoff access would be the main thing. So if there's going to be a super conference or something, and I mean the sport's changing as we're talking, like things are happening. It's very different. Yeah, and I think yes. I wouldn't worry about this is not going to happen anymore. I mean, it's possible, but it's not something I would say is very probable. I think that the parties involved want to make this work. If the sport changes in a way that makes it really difficult for USC to have that game on the schedule, that's where you would have to be worried. But yeah, so I guess that's it.
It's not dead yet. And Ryan, forgive me if you already brought this up, but it sounds like what we're both hearing. If the college football playoff format changes and the top 4 teams in the Big Ten and the SEC automatically get in, then if you finish in the top 4, you're in regardless of what would happen in the non-conference. That would lead to USC for sure playing the game, it sounds like.
That's from what I've heard. That what basically that means is if you have the automatic qualifiers, if you're Alabama and you have an opportunity to play Ohio State, you realize it's not going to impact your playoff chances. If you're USC, I don't want to talk about you. I mean, USC hasn't made a playoff yet, so I don't know how much playoff talk you want to have. But if you lose to Notre Dame, it wouldn't knock you out of the playoffs because you just need to be in the top 4 of the Big Ten standings, and then you could make the playoffs. So then it makes the impact of a loss less impactful. I guess you could say. We have Grateful Trojan. The future is a crossover agreement with the Big Ten and SEC. 9 conference games and an SEC game on the schedule every year is enough. Yeah, that's a problem also.
Yep. So,
would you want to have 9 Big Ten games, an SEC game, and Notre Dame? So there's 11. You're 11 of not just Power 5, but Power 2. You're playing all your games against Power 2, except one. And I don't know.
That's another reason why you want to have this wait and see approach, which USC is doing. You don't want to sign a 12-year deal to play Notre Dame, and then this gets thrown in your lap. And it sounds like conversations are still happening behind the scenes, as now we're in this revenue sharing era where if those games, the crossover SEC Big Ten games, can make more money that can go to these football programs, they're going to look at it because, as we all know, football is the biggest money maker, and that can help support other sports. That with this revenue sharing now, it's even more important to make as much money as possible, which of course was always important, but now that takes that's just bigger now. So that's another reason to wait and see. And another thing that I've heard is if the SEC goes to 9 conference games, right now they're at 8, that could put some future Notre Dame SEC games in jeopardy, and that would hurt Notre Dame. So I don't think Notre Dame right now, if the USC rivalry were to go away forever and just the rules of college football stayed the same moving forward, I don't think Notre Dame would be in too big of a bad situation. They could schedule other teams. But what would really hurt them is if this crossover game happens, the SEC goes to 9 conference games, then they're not looking at any marquee games outside of that Clemson game and some of the ACC ones. They probably would have a really hard time scheduling any Big Ten games, any SEC games. So, if that happens, then Notre Dame is really stuck between a rock and a hard place. And that's another reason why USC is smart to do this wait-and-see thing. Don't sign up for anything long-term. There's a lot of, I just feel like right now on social media, it's, USC wants to cancel the game. Screw that. What happened to tradition? I want to see the game continue as much as anyone, but I think even the biggest lover of this rivalry, if there's a crossover with the Big Ten and the SEC and that 9-game Big Ten schedule, it doesn't make any sense for USC to play Notre Dame in that situation. So again, I keep going back to this wait and see approach that USC's taking. It's the smart one. Let's see what happens.
Stephen L. says, first time joining Midday Live Show. Thanks for doing that.
Thanks, Steve.
Appreciate that. Otis, do you think that playing big games will get people hurt? Yeah, that's also if you're playing 9 conference games, an SEC game, and Notre Dame. I mean, there's the injury factor could be in play too, where you're playing all those. There's no weeks off.
No, and that's something that has to be looked at. And it does make sense why Lincoln Riley would say last year, like, we're going to look at this. It might not be in the best interest of our program when Notre Dame plays Navy and the ACC teams. Like, it's just not even at all. Even look at the SEC. Matt Rule came out today, the Nebraska coach, and said, we play 9 conference games. They play 8. We're already at a disadvantage. So I understand Lincoln Riley's approach. The problem is the rivalry is such a historic one. Fans want to see it. The marquee games are so important. The timing of it's not great where USC's lost 6 of 7 to Notre Dame. It kind of looks a little soft if they don't continue the game. So, like, there's so many moving parts with this, but I understand the trepidation because it's totally 2 different situations where USC is in this really tough conference. Notre Dame isn't. And while I don't think Notre Dame needs the game right now, it surely benefits them more than it does for USC. So, I hope there's a compromise that comes together, and maybe they just keep signing 1-year deals until there's more clarity with the playoff and this crossover, because I think USC, the biggest mistake they can make is say, yes, we have all this leverage, and you're not going to come to the table at all. Like, fine, we'll just cancel it. Then I don't think you look good in the court of public opinion. But if Notre Dame doesn't agree to a 1-year deal, like, for a few years, then I don't know what choice they have. So they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place too, like optically. But again, does that really matter? Who cares about the optics if you're winning games and doing well? If this rivalry goes away and USC's in the playoff, fans won't care.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I got some back and forth in the chat. We got some Notre Dame fans, coming in there. ND Freak says this is a joke. It's a 100-year intersectional rivalry. USC soft and just ducking the Irish. Alabama or Georgia would not do this. Alabama or Georgia wouldn't reschedule it to start. They wouldn't be playing for 95 times over 100 years or whatever it has been. No, and that's why I think USC's not been the best with perception sometimes, and probably Lincoln Riley's comments when he talked about this wasn't the best for what I'm hearing from what you heard is they want to make this work. Mm-hmm. They don't want the game to go away. This isn't like someone's trying to get out of because this is a tough game. They would like to make it work. They're bitten off a lot with the Big Ten and all the schedule, the travel, and all of that. And if there's not going to be any impact on the playoffs, like you're going to have automatic qualifiers, and all you got to do is finish in the top 4 in the Big Ten, I don't think there's any question that this would continue. So that's from what we've heard. Not like a ducking situation, but if they're going to schedule the SEC and 9 Big Ten games, it just makes it that much more difficult if one of these games is going to be Notre Dame. Now, they could move it around, too. We've had the tradition.
But Notre Dame doesn't want that as of right now.
I don't think so, but their schedule's a lot more open, obviously. If USC could move it to the beginning of the schedule, like a normal non-conference game, that might be a little more appealing as well. They've had this tradition forever where it's like, late November, where Notre Dame can come to Southern California where it's cold there and warm in LA. And then, when USC has to go to Notre Dame, they do that like mid-October. So you don't have to go when it's super cold and all that. It's worked for like a really long time. Maybe there's some tweaks. If I had to bet, it's going to just stay the same and they're going to just keep doing it. But with the whole sport changing, with everything different about what we know about college football in the last 5 years, and it's just so different than what it was. I get it that people are like thinking about other options, what works best. But if you're just a fan that like, hey, I like to throw on, you're watching Die Hard, even though it was at Christmas. He was watching USC Notre Dame, right? Like that's what they were watching, even though that's not the right time frame because it wouldn't be a Christmas game. But I don't think anyone really wants it to go away, but no one wants to like screw themselves over and make things so difficult that they're not even going to be able to compete. So I think that's kind of where people are.
And I would just say, who's ducking who if USC is offering these 1-year deals to keep the game on the schedule because they don't know what the future of college football looks like, and Notre Dame says no? Well, they know the alternative. The alternative then is not playing the game at all, and that would be their decision. It's not like USC is saying, oh, we're done. They've proposed a 1-year extension in 2026, according to that Sports Illustrated article. And again, we're trying to get more.
We heard the same thing. I heard that USC did offer a 1-year extension, and it wasn't accepted by Notre Dame. So if there's someone ducking, it's like Notre Dame's the one that said no to an extension. Was it the ideal extension that was 10 years? It was not. But from what we heard, It was a 1-year extension that USC offered and wasn't accepted.
And you got to play ball then if you're Notre Dame. Like, do you want this game or not? Again, it's like you said, it's not the perfect situation. Ideally, these teams would play for forever and it would just continue like this. But, like, even the biggest Notre Dame honk has to admit, like, for USC, scheduling this in the long term doesn't make sense the way college football is when stuff can change on a dime and there could be these crossover games and maybe the college football playoff doesn't change. Like, I understand USC wanting to take the wait and see approach. They've offered the 1-year deal. I go back to what you said and what the pushing against the commenter, like, oh, USC's ducking Notre Dame. Well, actually, they offered a solution and Notre Dame said no. So who's ducking who?
Yeah. All right. Well, good stuff there. We'll see kind of where this goes. USC did make a couple moves. I don't know if we got to talk about both of these, Connor, but Tremaine Carroll ends up getting hired, strength and conditioning coach, and then they announced Lonnie Maddox coming in, associate director of football sports performance. I don't know if we got to talk about him joining, but then also Kerry Thompson is coming in from the HBCU world to be one of the assistant strength coaches. So I know Chris did a story or put a story up on that hire. I think Football Scoop broke it. I don't believe USC's announced it yet, but making some moves on the strength and conditioning front, Connor.
They've turned it over to Tremaine Carroll, who came from Kansas State. He's bringing his guys into the program. It's what you want to see happen. It's like when you hire a new head coach, you want that new head coach to bring in their assistants. It's a little bit different, obviously, with Carroll working under Lincoln Riley, but the same kind of gist of it, where this guy is a proven strength coach. The results at Kansas State have been very good. Let's get his guys in here, and let's get USC on a different program. I said it when we last spoke, Ryan. This, to me, was a major, major change for Lincoln Riley, something that I don't think he would make a couple years ago. It shows growth. It shows that he's willing to make changes to the program that maybe he wouldn't make by himself, but he's listening. It's a collaborative effort. I'm very happy with this move, and I think it's another step in the right direction for a USC program that's kind of, on the brink here. What's going to happen? It's a make-or-break season for them, and they're putting all their chips in to have a good year, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, for sure. We got to talk to Desmond Stevens, and the interview isn't out yet. Maybe by the time you're seeing this, if you're not watching us live, that'll be up there. But the players are going to have a couple weeks off. They had finals. So this is kind of a, as far as we talk about timing of hiring Tremaine Carroll. So, I'm sure right now, hard at work putting his staff together, putting a program together, and then get to have everybody come back and have the team come in and get ready with their summer workout schedule. So he'll get a lot of time with these players over the next couple of months, getting them ready for fall camp. It'll be interesting to see what kind of different direction he takes their strength and conditioning programs, going in and getting them ready for fall. So it should be a lot of fun to see. Yeah,
I just wonder if it's kind of late in the game. Like, they will have this whole summer, which is good, but I thought it was interesting that they did this move now instead of before spring. But maybe with Chad Bowden coming in and Jen Cohen still, assessing the program, and Lincoln Riley still assessing the program, maybe they didn't come to a final conclusion until then. But I kind of feel like ideally you would have had this new strength coach implemented in January, and then he gets the whole 8-month run up to the season. So if the desired results aren't there, that's something we can look back on and say, maybe they didn't do it in time. But again, regardless of that, I do think it's still a step in the right direction.
I do too. Yeah, I know that. But with the schedule changing, I think you could debate when the best time is, but I still think it would be like a January kind of deal. But with the portal and everything, the stuff that's going on, it can be a little different. So it'd be interesting to see how that transition in. All these players, you have to meet the new strength staff and see what's now expected of them, what changes, you get in kind of a routine. How much is the routine going to change? How much will the workouts change? All that kind of stuff. So that will be interesting to see. On the recruiting front, USC still does have the number one 2026 class, but got a big decommitment. Xavier Griffin out of Georgia, the 5-star linebacker. We kind of heard that this was potentially happening. I think some of the talk about USC not wanting their commitments to take official visits places. But what do you think about this development, Connor?
Well, let's get into the second controversial topic of the week. Comes down to official visits. If you're committed to USC, the rule now with Chad Bowden here is you cannot take official visits to other schools. If you're locked in, you're locked in. The standard is the standard. That's the standard that he is setting. So any USC commit, if they want to officially visit other schools, they will not be a USC commit anymore. Ryan, what do you think of that policy? With Xavier Griffin, it's interesting because he was committed to USC before Chad Bowden got here. So you'd maybe think, yes, you want the standard to be the standard, but maybe you could grandfather some people in who were here before this new standard was in place. According to Griffin's mom, I talked to a source who spoke with her. They were up front with USC this whole time saying we want to take official visits. USC with Bowden pushed back and said, if you're committed here, we don't want that to happen. And then neither side came off of their stance, and here we are. So I kind of wish that they went for a case-by-case basis, but, like, I'm not going to knock Chad Bowden right now. Yes, you lost a 5-star commitment. That's a shame, but, like, Notre Dame played for the freaking national championship last season. If this is what it takes to get to the national championship, that's what you got to do.
I think it's you're playing a long-term sort of game here, and from, hearing about what Chad Bowden did at Notre Dame, and they had a very similar sort of policy. It's trying to change the overall culture of the program, and I think that's it's a big undertaking. Could you have made an exception for a 5-star guy that, it's, if you look at it, it was a commitment from outside of the new personnel. The whole personnel staff has changed, right? So it's a commitment outside that window. It's an out-of-state commitment. It's not like a local guy that would be a priority. It's a prime candidate for some sort of decommitment. Would I guess that it's the only, like, this visit policy? I think there's a lot of sort of factors involved with this, and I believe that's the case of how this is going. I think we'll see how this develops, but a lot of the guys, I think that if you've committed since all the new personnel staff have been there, I think you're on board with the idea of what they want this football culture to be going forward. Guys that were not, I think a lot of times you'd like them to still be part of the class, but there's, maybe they aren't buying into the same sort of values that this new personnel staff with the coaching staff and the administration, everyone together, wants them to be. So I would say it's not as like, well, he's going to take a visit, so you're not. I think there's more. Obviously it's a little more complicated than that, but that's, the root of it. It was a player that was going to be, that bought into kind of maybe a little bit different vibe of what they're selling now. And I don't know if there's still an opportunity for USC to, bring him in and have him be part of the class. We'll see, maybe take some visits. They keep the communication. I don't think there was bridges burned, and there was just like, these sides are never going to talk again. I wouldn't bank on him being part of the class, but I wouldn't say it's completely out of the question. But I think some of this is just a message like, hey, this is the way we're going to do things. If you're only worried about money, or if this is just you want to do all these trips or whatever it is, maybe this isn't the right match. And I think USC is willing to part ways with people that aren't going to buy into what their message is. And I think it'll get easier to do that. You start winning more games. That's certainly going to help. If you're Alabama or Georgia or something, you can do that. Like, here's a Georgia way or whatever it is, because this is Ohio State's way. You're like, well, it's working because they've won. So I think USC is in the process of trying to make that be the USC way. Here's the winning attitude that you're going to need. I think it will make it easier to buy in once you start winning games on Saturdays.
Is it the policy that I would choose? Probably not. But am I going to sit here and say, oh, this will never work, USC's doomed, this is so stupid? No. I'm willing to give this a chance. Again, we've talked about the playoff, all this college football playoff talk. USC's never made it. Chad Bowden, when he was in charge at Notre Dame, of that recruiting department, this was his strategy. Notre Dame played for the national championship last season with a roster that Bowden largely put together. Like, if the track record wasn't there, I'd be like, oh, man, I don't know. But, like, there's a clear track record of this working. So I'm willing to give it a chance. And if it doesn't work, then, hey, that's why we get paid to cover the team. We can poke holes in it later. But, like, I'm not going to make any big prediction right now. Like, oh, no shot. That's a bad move. Anytime you lose a 5-star, it's not a great look. But I'm willing to give this a chance because of the track record. And you're right, Ryan. USC still has the number 1 class. It hurts to lose a 5-star guy, but it's not like they're doing a awful job. And like, they finished in the 20s a couple years ago in recruiting. Like, things are still way, way different than they were. So I think you kind of have to remember that. I do expect a couple more decommitments. That's going to continue here a little bit, but I also expect more commitments. Like, it's not that USC is just going to plateau and then they'll lose guys and that'll be it. There are other players out there who USC will get, and they might lose some players, but like, establishing that standard, that could lead to success. So I'm willing to give it a shot for sure.
Yeah, I think you have to look at the track record, and to bring in such an experienced personnel staff that have had great success, you sort of trust them to do their jobs. And they have to come into the USC situation, which is different from wherever you're coming in from. If you were coming in from Illinois or Notre Dame or whatever it was, it's like, okay, there's a different situation. You got to adapt what you're doing to the new program you're at. But you trust, hey, they understand how this works. They're looking for long-term, they don't necessarily need to get something that's going to be splashy. We've seen USC sort of go out early in the process and get like splashy commits that weren't going to stick, more of like a PR thing. I don't think anything that this new personnel staff is doing is for perception. Like, they're doing it to try to build a championship roster. You might disagree with their methods or whatever, but like Connor said, you sort of trust the track record that they know what they're doing and working towards building something. And I think that's good. It's good to know that there are people that are smart and know what they're doing, and they're implementing their plans. And along the way, you might see like, oh, that looks weird or whatever. But I think you have to at least give it a chance to see, hey, they had success other places. What can they do in LA for USC?
Do you think this hurts other 5-star prospects standing with USC in the future? Because I do think a 5-star recruitment is much different than a different recruitment. Like, it is really challenging to get a 5-star kid to totally shut it down in May. So maybe the argument would be, hey, don't commit to USC, like take all your visits and then commit after. So that, a rational person, I think, would come to that conclusion. But we all know, in recruiting, there's not a lot of rational thinking at times. Like Kenai Pepe, he's shut it down. It seems like he's locked in. But I do think there will be other Xavier Griffins where maybe they do fall in love with USC very early on. They commit, and then it's just such a long time until you sign that people in your ear, maybe you're not from LA, you get convinced to take official visits. And I don't want that bridge to be burned with these recruits. If they choose to take official visits, I want USC to try to welcome them back with open arms. And maybe that'll be the case with Griffin, but it does kind of seem like a little bit right now. I don't know how much contact those two sides are having. So let's let him take his visits and we'll see. But I just worry about the future of 5-star recruiting with USC with this policy. That would be my one concern. But again, I'm willing to give it a chance.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kenai Pepe is one that, like, hey, that he's highly ranked, but also fits what we want. It's almost like it's like a filter of sorts. You're like, okay, well, there's this 5-star that really like, but he's all over the world. It's just doing all these things. He doesn't want to be bought in, and so maybe that's like, well, you're gonna pass on some guys because they're not fitting. But there are going to be guys that are like Kenai Pepe that's like, hey, he's highly ranked. He's bought into what we're selling, and he's going to commit and not visit and all that kind of stuff. So I think they can find those guys, but it makes it a little more difficult, right? Because you're putting up some extra barriers that, you from their point of view, they feel like this is what you need to build a winning roster. And if you're a fan, you just want to like follow along and like, hey, sign that 5-star. If they have reasons why they don't want to, or because they're not, he's not buying into the culture that you're trying to sell. For the fans' perspective, you're like, well, hey, he's highly ranked. We want to get him, and I think they're purposely doing this to try to build the roster the way they want to. And like you said, you can argue if that's a right or wrong philosophy, but you've got to trust what they're doing. They understand what they're doing, and I think there's a reason behind all of these moves they make.
I would just say that if a 5-star prospect wants to take official visits, and that's the thing that leads USC to saying, no, we're good, I'm out, like just doing that, just assessing their options, I could see why that's a tough pill to swallow for fans.
Yeah, but then if you're saying that, we're asking this 4-star guy not to take visits, but
it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, then the 5-star can. Then you're like, well, why can he do that? So it's, yeah. I think,
but that's college football. Like
that's true. Yeah,
the top of the roster guys are different than the bottom of the roster, and so much about what makes this game unique and crazy is like massaging that relationship where. 3-star, you're tough, you're gritty, you're going to look somewhere else. We'll drop you in a second. But if it's a 5-star kid, you kind of got to manage it. So I just think it's fascinating. We've seen Clemson have this strategy. Notre Dame would historically start really fast recruiting, and then they'd tail off a little bit. But again, the track record speaks for itself. So it's just an interesting inflection point where when I wrote about what Chad Bowden's doing, I talked about how this is now the second chapter of his tenure, where the first one is he gets hired and USC immediately as the number 1 recruiting class. Now it's okay, we have this standard, some people are leaving, like they're finally dealing with some adversity where a couple months ago they were just getting every player under the sun and things were going great. Like this was always going to be that next step, and let's see how they handle that adversity, and let's see if this policy ends up being the right move for USC. I think it's really a unique case, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
If you're in the YouTube comments, for some reason it's not showing up on my screen to put it on the screen, but I can still see them. If you have any questions, you can put them up there. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. One more topic to talk about, and we'll do a few questions and get out of here. But back in a minute, everyone. Alrighty, we're back here on the Peristyle Podcast. One other topic I want to talk about, Connor. If you're following along the way the sport is changing that we've mentioned before, Ross Dellinger with Yahoo does a great job covering all of this stuff. The College Sports Commission looks like a new entity that would be part of the House settlement that's supposed to kick in July 1st. We're still waiting on that California judge to ratify that settlement and push it forward. There's potential, legal battles that would go on with that, probably instantaneously. But one of the more interesting things that he brought up was a proposal that, you would have this, you're trying to, the House settlement would allow athletic departments to pay a percentage, 22% or something of their budget or of an average budget to student athletes for new scholarships, things like that, and, paying players directly. What they wanted to do was limit the current NIL deals the way they are for a pay-for-play thing where a collective just says, here's $1 million, we want you to play football for, State Tech, whatever. And so, okay, what's that $1 million for? Nothing. Or just so you can play. That's technically against the rules, but there's no way to really defend it. So they would have a new clearinghouse that's going to be run by the big accounting firm Deloitte that would try to justify any deals that you would have. So if I said, hey, Connor, here's $1 million to go play football over at UCLA or whatever, and they're like, well, what are you doing for that? Well, I signed an autograph for a kid. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not worth $1 million. Now, who's to say what you do is worth what or whatever? So that's tough. But apparently 90% or 80% of the deals that have been signed for the bigger money would have not been cleared by this clearinghouse. So there's going to be legal fighting that would go along with all of this. But this new College Sports Commission, from what Ross Dellinger was reporting, would be something where actually all the schools in the Power Four would buy into this, and basically give up their rights to come back with lawsuits or go against there would be like an arbitration process. But if you don't like that this deal got nixed and this player was deemed ineligible or whatever the punishment was, there's going to be severe punishments if you break the rules. Too bad. If you don't want to be in this, then you're out. And I mean, there's legal problems with that. I know Tennessee's lawmakers have been pushing stuff like where they were going to make it so Tennessee schools don't have to follow these rules. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on. Apparently, a lot of schools are interested in doing something like this, so you don't have rogue schools. You know, you pay the student athletes $22 million a year or whatever it is, but then you have other schools that are still raising $40 million a year in collectives. And I think in general, schools don't like this because it's probably not sustainable to get that kind of money every year to pay players. They would love it to just come from the athletic department, is my understanding. There's some schools that are going to push back a lot, and I think Tennessee and those schools are one of them. You know, with the state lawmakers in Tennessee trying to pass a bunch of laws that would benefit their state schools like Memphis and Vanderbilt and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's mostly University of Tennessee. But anyway, that's sort of like what's going on right now, and is being discussed. I don't know what you've heard about it, Connor, or what your thoughts are, but it's kind of crazy right now.
It just seems like another solution that won't hold up.
Okay.
Those are my thoughts on it. In the article by Dellinger, he quoted a sports law professor. So just to give some background, so if all the schools sign this document, they can't sue if a ruling goes against their way, but they can go to arbitration. And this law professor says arbitration itself isn't surprising, but saying that you can agree not to follow your state law, that may or may not be enforceable. Every school who signs this agreement to oversee all the NIL stuff, it goes above state law, which I don't know how that is possibly legal. Like, I can get you to sign a contract and then you can just break the law. Like, that's bogus. That doesn't make any sense. So I just think as more time goes on, we're just seeing more and more solutions that look like they make sense, but it's just inching more and more towards these guys getting paid because, like, I know the NCAA and a lot of people are going out of their way to say, like, we'll pay you $2 million to play football, but, you know, you got to do all these other things. Like, can we just pay the guys the millions of dollars and they can play football? Like, can we stop with the dog and pony show? I know that's going to lead to a bunch of other things that people might not want, but, like, as more and more time goes on, I just don't know what the solution is. Like, this to me doesn't make any sense because it's superseding law. Like, that it's not how this country works. So I don't think that this will hold up. And one athletic director said, either sign it or we're not going to play you. Like, I don't know. The whole thing seems kind of bogus to me, and we're just getting closer and closer to the day when these guys will get paid what they deserve and not have to jump through all the hoops.
Yeah, it is a little strange, for sure. But to be also fair, like, some of these state laws are literally just like big fans or boosters of the school
it's true.
Like the school now, you're not going to get that in California. There's not going to be some lawmaker that's like passing something to help USC or UCLA or Stanford or Cal. Like, that just doesn't the way it works. But in the South, like in Tennessee, you're seeing it. I mean, they're pushing this stuff through, you know, trying to do whatever they can. It's like, yeah, we got to help our boys. And it's like, I think I get it, because you can't have some states that are just like writing laws to help their local schools, and other states are just like, you know, we don't really care about college football. So you're trying to make some more of a national deal. But I think you're right. I mean, we're going to get to the point where you need like collective bargaining, you know, make it so if you like, you can't sue. Like, if you're an NFL player, you're not suing because you're in your rookie contract and you can't negotiate something new because you've signed up for this. It's a collective bargaining thing. They're trying to make something similar where, like, hey, all these schools signed up for this. This is the way it is. You can't fight it legally because we've all bought into this. But they're staying away from the employee thing. And I think you're eventually going to get there where these guys are employees. Football and maybe basketball are separate from other things. The rest of the athletic department can run it the way they've run it for years, but for football, for the sports that make a ton of money, you're going to have to do it different in some way.
What does this do for the players, though? Why would a player who can make $2 million say, hey, this is a great idea. Now I have to do all this other crap, even more than I do currently, to get the $2 million. Like, there's no player representation here. It's just athletic departments of schools saying, this is what we're going to do. We're all going to enforce each other. But if you're a player, like, I don't see how this possibly helps. If this goes through, this might sound crazy, but I could see a world where, like, the best high school kids, some crazy businessman says, forget about college football. Let's start a league and do something separate where you don't have to go to school. We'll get the TV deal in place and you play for a couple years, then you go to the NFL. Like, I don't know why, if you're a player who can make a lot of money playing college football, why this would make any sense. Like, yes, you can still get a cut of that $22 million, but this is clearly a way to limit what players can make. And that, to me, I don't think will hold up in court at all. So it just seems to me like a solution that might make some people happy in the short term. But in the long term, when you look at everything through a wider lens, I just don't see how this could possibly hold up. And it might lead to stuff that could be even worse. Like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I don't know why schools would be so excited about this.
Yeah, Gerard's talked about that for years too, where there's just going to be like some kind of minor league where school's not involved anymore.
If they keep screwing this up, I almost said a bad word. If they keep screwing this up, I could see that happening.
You could say bad words, or just like on YouTube and stuff, but we try not to. But every once in a while that might happen. Yes, I don't know if you would get. I mean, the pageantry. Like, there's still a lot of great stuff about college football,
Yes.
even though a lot of fans are disillusioned, and there's fans that we hear from all the time that are like, this isn't what I've grew up rooting for. And some of the appeal of your college football team, like if you watch European soccer, like, hey, you're from this town and like, this is my like, there's a lot of pride in it. And I think there's a lot of pride in where people went to school. Now there's some people that didn't go to that college, but maybe they grew up in the area, just grew up fans, whatever it was. But when, Matt Leinart went to the same library and studied where I did. Like, there's these similar things where school is involved, and maybe that student athlete picked the school that I picked for very similar reasons. And now a lot of those reasons have changed. And do you feel as much pride as like, yay, my school paid this kid the most money, so he went, he didn't care about the quad, or he didn't care, whatever. Like, there's a lot that there's just some of the stuff that made it cool for you isn't as cool anymore. If it's just like, oh, well, we were the highest bidder, yay. Like, the Oregon fans go, yay, we have Phil Knight, it's amazing.
Some do.
Yeah, I mean, but a lot of it you would rather be like, hey, there's this great track tradition and all this stuff, and here's why. And not that, I mean, those are still involved, but it's less now, and money is a lot more, a lot bigger part of it. So I think some of those fans have become, it's a harder sell for them. But overall, TV ratings are up, and I don't know. I mean, probably the game experience is worse. Like, I bet, even in the SEC, you're seeing like, are you going to sell out? Like, some places are just going to sell out all the time, and other places it's going to be harder, where you used to sell out a lot and now you don't anymore. I think across the board, it's a tougher sell, but TV ratings are still high. And, some of it's getting like a Deion Sanders to come in or whatever, you're seeing things like that, but it's, for some of the diehard fans, it's not the same as it was just even 5 years ago.
No, it's certainly not the same, but viewership is still high, and there's a new playoff format, which people really like. So I sound like a broken record coming on this show when I don't know what the solution is, but just as more and more time goes on, I don't know how the football and men's basketball players, and maybe women's basketball players to an extent too, can't get a direct cut of the television money. Like, some time down the line, someone will sue and say, I deserve a cut from this massive CBS deal because I'm a big part of the product. Like, the fact that money goes to the athletic department and then it gets sprinkled down to the players, like, it's a step in the right direction, but I just don't think that is makes a whole lot of sense when, if you're a 5-star kid, you could be making more money if you were directly paid by the TV channels. So we could talk in circles forever with this, and we talk about it all the time, but I do think a collective bargaining agreement is coming. And then it's crazy where you have 18-year-old kids collective bargaining with schools and TV contracts. Like, it's crazy to think about, but I don't really know what the alternative is.
Yeah. We got a super chat.
Wow.
And I'm sorry I can't put it up on the screen for whatever reason. The YouTube ones stopped going my feed. We can still see them, but Cousin Milt says Notre Dame not having to play in conference like the Big Ten or SEC, or in a conference championship game, is no longer sustainable in the new era of college football. Damn tradition and the NBC money.
So he wants to get rid of the game?
It sounds kind of like it. Trojan Mill can follow up with that. But, yeah, this is a good deal. I mean, I think the new playoff is a really good deal for Notre Dame, where you're not going to play as difficult a schedule. Even if you can't get a bye, you essentially get a bye during championship week because you don't have to play in a conference championship game. So it's kind of a sweet deal for Notre Dame. But I think to keep it going, they're still going to need big games. And I know there was people in the chat saying Alabama played 4 cupcakes for years or played 1 neutral site game. Even Alabama and the teams like that are switching to, hey, we have to play some bigger games because they are seeing, you didn't want to see Wolford coming to Tuscaloosa. Like they wanted some big home kind of games. So I think Wisconsin and Alabama play this year. So I think you're seeing more of that where you're trying to get closer to, hey, we need bigger games. And Notre Dame needs them too. You can't do like a bunch of service academies and, Stanford used to be good. They stink. So that, what are you doing with that? That doesn't really count as a big game anymore. I think they need it, but it's not a bad path for Notre Dame to get the playoff. And it's no secret that the Notre Dame athletic director was part of the architecture of this new playoff format.
In an ideal world, I would just hope that you'd want to play your rivals and not worry about them, like just worry about yourself. But they are playing by totally different rules. So if you want to hear our discussion on this, rewind. I won't, bring that all back up. Like I understand the comment and why USC fans are frustrated, and I don't want to see the game go away. But there's some people who hate Notre Dame so much that they think not playing USC would really stick a fork in them and really screw them, and that's why they don't want to play the game anymore. I don't think it's that drastic, but that line of thinking does make sense to me because Notre Dame's not in a conference. They have a tough time scheduling marquee games later in the season. So while I don't think they're screwed, I understand why, if you're a USC fan, you would think that anything we can do to hurt them is good. So let's not play because that hurts them. How about you just beat them? That's what I'd say.
Yeah.
Play them and beat them. That's what hurts them the most.
That's better. Trojan Fight put this question up before. Cotter, where can we look forward to USC wins losses prediction?
That's a good question. I think, was it August last year that Chris and I did like the board Q&A? So maybe right before the season. I'm going through right now when Bud Elliott does the summer school episodes with USC opponents. I'm writing those up, and those have really helped me to determine like how good a USC opponent can be. I've done Oregon so far. Iowa should come out today, and then as they pump out the rest of those, I'll continue to preview USC's opponents. And just through two, like, it's a really hard game, but I think USC has as good of a chance to beat Oregon on the road than they have in a long time. So just to give a little sneak peek, I think right now I'm feeling a little bit better about my record prediction than I was a couple weeks ago. So stay tuned. I'd say probably August, but maybe there's a chance that happens a little bit before. So we'll see.
We had Beefeater ND08. The Big Ten has NBC money now, too. Not sure NBC wants the rivalry to end. Also, the only reason we played Army last year was because of the Miami backed out of their game they had scheduled. So there's been still a lot of like Notre Dame playing Army, Navy, or whatever, the service academies and stuff. I mean, those are traditions. I like those kind of things.
Who cares about their schedule? They made the national championship game. They won. They succeeded. Like, I don't know why we're arguing. They didn't play anyone. Okay, that might be true. They made the national championship. That's all that matters.
Yeah. He also said he introduced himself. Hey, gents, first time here. Just looking to keep a great rivalry in place.
Yes, me too.
If the Big Ten went back to the East-West divisions, where would Indiana Notre Dame would be the furthest east USC would travel? Would that work?
Yes, but they're not going back to divisions, so I don't think.
Yeah, I think the divisions things of like kind of.
They just got rid of them.
Yeah.
To accompany all the new teams. Like,
Legends.
I think that ship has sailed, unfortunately.
Yeah. Stefan says chances of landing Nasir Rankin.
I saw a bunch of crystal balls for him to Illinois, so I don't think it's good.
Who's that? That's
he's a recruit.
Yeah, I didn't know. Do you know anything about him? I don't really know much about. Jamie says, "Do you feel there's a double standard going on with USC and Notre Dame, and ND can benefit from ducking a conference, while SC gets dunked on for trying to make their path to a national championship easier?"
Yeah, I think that's definitely there a little bit. What I would just say, though, is like who changed. It was USC that changed and joined the Big Ten. They had to do it. So it's hard to hold that against them. But it's not like Notre Dame has made these changes and now they're not in a good spot. Like they've just always stayed the same. So I definitely get the commenter's point, and it is a good one, but I think we have to keep that in mind too. Like USC is the reason USC doesn't want to play is because they're playing all these better teams now than they were in the Pac-12. If the Pac-12 was still alive and college football was the way it was a decade ago, this game's not going anywhere.
ND Freak 77, the conference shifts are ruining rivalries.
Yes.
That is the argument. Yeah, we've seen it take some away. I mean, Bedlam not going, that's just terrible. We did bring back Texas A&M, even though that was gone for a while. Notre Dame doesn't need ND USC as much as college football does. I think college football does need it as well. But of the two schools, obviously, I think we think Notre Dame needs the game more. But I think college football needs it too. I think Gerard talks about this a lot. You could keep making changes for the sake of making more money, but at some point, it's going to turn fans off. Like if games like this kept going away, and there's a bunch of other rivalries that do, like if Clemson and South Carolina stopped playing, like if this kept happening, and people are just like, you know what, you guys don't even care about us. Like these are the things we care about. We want this game. And you keep getting rid of things for reasons they're more about money than about what makes this the best possible product ever. And there's no argument that would say getting rid of USC Notre Dame makes the college football product better. It's just not. And we don't have a college football czar. We don't have anyone looking over the betterment of the sport. And so many decisions have been made that would make this program better or this conference better. And we're not seeing decisions made that make the sport better. So I agree with that comment there.
Great point by you bringing up Clemson, South Carolina. Do you think South Carolina likes playing freaking Clemson every year, getting their doors blown off after struggling in the SEC most of the time? Maybe they're complaining about that game, but I don't hear that noise nearly as loud as this noise. Maybe that contract isn't set to expire anytime soon, but it's a different situation. But I'm sure South Carolina doesn't love playing Clemson every year, but they still do it. So, there's other examples of teams in these situations who are continuing these rivalries. So I haven't done any research in the Clemson, South Carolina. If there's something going on there. I just used an example. No, but it's a good one. It's pretty much the exact same situation where USC is South Carolina and Clemson is Notre Dame. Because it's a little different, of course, but it's similar in some ways. So,
if South Carolina they went to 9-game schedule in the SEC, then they played a Big Ten team, and they're like, "Crap, now we got to play Clemson too."
God.
I get it, that kind of sucks.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap things up for not a lot going on. We got a lot of discussion, especially certainly out of this USC Notre Dame game. I did the Sirius XM college football show yesterday. We talked about it a lot. I got 2 or 3 friends texting me screenshots because I guess your name comes up if you're watching the Sirius XM thing.
Nice.
It's Ryan Abraham, USCfootball.com. So people are like, "Hey, I saw you." I was like, "Oh, thanks." But yeah, so it's a big deal. I think we should talk about it here. We're going to try to come up with some different topics as well for keep doing these shows in the off season. Just, things are, if there's not newsy things, we'll, something looking forward to the season. If you have ideas, you can email us podcast@uscfootball.com for a show topic for a week where we can get you guys discussing certain things. I've had a couple ideas. I know Connor has as well. We'll keep going forward with that. And make sure you check out our Desmond Stevens interview. It'll be up on our YouTube channel and at uscfootball.com fairly soon. So we'll put that up. And we probably won't be on the podcast. So if you're listening in podcast form, go to our YouTube channel, @Inside Troy, or go to uscfootball.com. We'll have the interview up there.
The last thing I'll say, Grateful Trojan in the chat brought up a good point with Clemson, South Carolina. South Carolina only plays the 8 conference games where USC plays 9 and Notre Dame. So
right,
it is a little different.
Yeah, I'm saying if we're assuming that SEC is going to go to 9 at some point, especially if I think it's another thing with the automatic qualifiers. You get automatic qualifiers. SEC knows they got their top 4 teams in. They don't mind adding another conference game. So I think a lot of these decisions made by the Power 2 are going to be based on do they get their 4 automatic qualifiers that we've been hearing a lot about?
Just go to 16 teams, give those 2 conferences 8 for each, and then fill out the rest. I don't know why it's so hard.
Yeah, it's probably going to go that way, but we'll see. All right, well, that's going to wrap things up. We appreciate everyone joining us live or however you're listening across our podcasting platform universe. That is Connor Morrissette. I am Ryan Abraham. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Make sure you check out uscfootball.com for more, and we will talk to you next time.